I built my wealth without their help, and now I'm the one who holds all the power. My dad's knuckles were white around his beer bottle, and he kept looking past my shoulder at the rest of the backyard like he was waiting for reinforcements. The fairy lights strung across the pergola made everything feel fake cheerful. Warm glow, plastic plates, someone's phone blasting a nostalgic playlist, while my stomach sat heavy and sour, like I'd swallowed the smoke from the barbecue instead of breathing it. My brother Dean stood next to the esky with a grin that didn't reach his eyes, rocking on his heels like he couldn't wait to watch me get put in my place. Mom had positioned herself near the sliding door, half in, half out, dish towel in her hands like she was ready to mop up whatever mess I made. "We're not asking," Dad said quietly, the way he does when he thinks quiet equals control. He slid a folded piece of paper across the outdoor table toward me, creased, printed, official-looking. Then tapped it twice. "You're signing this tonight. Dean needs the guarantor. We've already told the broker you're in." I didn't touch the paper. My fingers stayed wrapped around my own glass, so tightly the condensation made my palms slick. I could hear laughter from my aunties near the patio heater, the clink of ice, a kid shrieking as someone chased him with a water gun. Normal family noise, the kind that usually makes you feel safe. Except it didn't. It made me feel trapped, like they'd built a cage out of other people's good moods and dared me to make it awkward. "No," I said, but my voice came out steadier than I felt. "I'm not signing anything." Dean's grin widened, like he'd been waiting for the show to start. Mom's whisper cut through the air. "Please don't do this." Dad's jaw tightened. "Don't do what?" I asked, keeping my eyes on him. "Have boundaries?" I set my glass down slowly because my hand was shaking and I didn't want them to see it. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out my own envelope, thick, stamped, the kind you don't bring to barbecue unless you're bracing for war, and placed it on the table, right on top of the paper they wanted me to sign. "Actually," I said, and my throat tightened on the word, "I came here to talk about something you don't know. And before you start calling me selfish, you're going to listen." It wasn't always dramatic. That's the thing that messes with my head. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have said my family was close, just intense. We're the kind of family who talks over each other, who makes jokes that sting a bit, who says, "We're just being honest," like honesty is a free pass to be cruel. I'm the oldest. I've always been the responsible one, which in my family basically means the designated adult from the age of 14. Dean is 2 years younger than me, the golden boy with the big plans and the constant bad luck. Mom and Dad have always treated his mistakes like weather. Unfortunate, unavoidable, not his fault, while mine were treated like character flaws. If I got a B, it was "you didn't try." If he failed, it was the teacher was unfair. If I worked 2 jobs through uni, it was "you're so independent." If he quit another course, it was "he's finding himself." I moved out at 19. Not in a dramatic fight, just in that slow, quiet way where you realize your home is making you smaller. I rented a tiny unit with carpet that smelled faintly of old cigarettes and a shower that went cold after 6 minutes. I worked admin during the day and bartended at night. I learned a budget because no one was coming to save me. I learned the difference between being tired and being depleted. I learned, most painfully, that my parents loved me most when I made their lives easier. I didn't build wealth by winning the lottery or marrying rich. I built it the boring way. Time, consistency, and keeping my mouth shut. I got a job in operations for a logistics company and climbed slowly. I said yes to overtime. I took the promotions that made me nauseous with imposter syndrome. I put money into index funds, even when it felt pointless. I lived below my means, even when friends were traveling and upgrading phones and buying little treats every weekend. I didn't do it because I'm morally superior. I did it because I was terrified of ending up stuck like my parents, stuck like Dean, stuck in that cycle where you spend your entire life reacting to emergencies you created. The part we didn't talk about at family dinners was the property. 2 years ago, my partner and I, now ex, different story, different heartbreak, bought an investment place. Nothing fancy. An older house on a quiet street in Western Sydney, the kind with a lemon tree out the back and a fence that leans slightly like it's tired. We got it because the numbers made sense. and because I wanted something tangible, something my family couldn't guilt me out of with a speech. We rented it out through an agent. It was just a step, a piece on the board. Then, 6 months ago, my property manager called me while I was in a meeting. I saw the missed call, felt that familiar twist of anxiety, and rang back during my lunch break. "Hey," she said, voice careful. "Just letting you know we received notice. The tenants have requested a hardship variation. They're behind." I asked for the address. She read it out. I froze, sandwich halfway to my mouth. It was my parents' address. I know how that sounds. Like I'm an idiot who didn't know where her own parents lived. But my parents have moved rentals a few times, and I've never been the one signing leases or doing paperwork. They told everyone, that they were renting from a private landlord, someone strict, someone who doesn't understand family values. They complained about rent hikes. They joked about landlords being parasites right in front of me while I nodded and swallowed my own discomfort. I've been to the house for birthdays and Christmas and Sunday lunches and never once connected it to mine because, in my head, my investment property was an asset with spreadsheets attached. Their house was my parents' house, full of mismatched furniture and my childhood photos. When I got home that day, I sat on my couch with my laptop open and pulled up the property file. Same street, same number, same photos, same lemon tree. My skin went cold like someone had turned a fan on inside my chest. I scrolled through the rental inspection images and saw my mom's floral tea towels on the oven handle, Dean's old footy poster in the garage, the little scratch on the hallway wall where I'd once carried a suitcase through too quickly. My parents had been living in a house I owned for months. They didn't know. I didn't know. And suddenly, everything they'd said about money and hard times and were drowning clicked into a sharp, ugly pattern. I didn't immediately tell them, partly because I couldn't even wrap my head around it, partly because I knew, deep down, that if they found out, it would turn into a claim. They wouldn't see it as coincidence. They'd see it as destiny, like the universe had finally put me back in my role. They'd ask for rent reductions, for family discounts, for me to put the property in their name, to keep it in the family. Dean would call it my duty. Mom would cry. Dad would rage. And I would end up feeling like a monster for wanting my own life. So I kept quiet and I handled it like a landlord, like a person with boundaries, not like a daughter with guilt. I told my property manager, no harassment, everything documented, follow the lease. We offered a payment plan. We didn't threaten. We didn't humiliate. We worked it out. They agreed, signed, made the first payment. Then they missed the second. And that's when the call started, calls to me, not about rent, but about helping Dean. Dean's latest big plan was a business that required a loan he couldn't get on his own. A vehicle, equipment, startup costs. He'd been denied twice already. So he did what he always does. He turned toward the person with stability and treated it like a communal resource. At first he tried charm. "Sis, it's a no-brainer," he said over the phone, voice bright. "I'll pay it. I just need your name for the bank." "Easy." I said no. Then he tried guilt. "Mom and Dad are stressed," he said. "You know how much pressure they're under. If I can get this going, I can help them." I said no again. Then he tried anger. "You think you're better than us now," he snapped. "You always have." My mom started with the soft texts. "Can you come over? We need to talk as a family." Dad started leaving voicemails where he said my full name like I was in trouble. Dean started posting inspirational quotes about family loyalty like it was a subtweet. And then, this barbecue. The ambush. The paper slid across the table like a trap. Back in the backyard, Dad's finger tapped the page again, harder this time. "Dean needs the guarantor," he repeated, louder, as if volume could turn me into the version of me he wanted. "You've got good credit. You've got savings. Stop acting like it's the end of the world." I took a breath through my nose. I could smell charcoal and onions and that sickly cinnamon candle Mom loves. "You already told the broker I'm in?" I asked. Dad didn't blink. "Yes," he said, proud. "Because I know you'll do the right thing." Dean laughed under his breath. "She loves playing hard to get," he said to no one in particular. Something in me went very quiet. Not calm. Quiet like the moment before a glass shatters. "Okay," I said, and Mom's shoulders loosened slightly like she thought she'd won. Then I slid my envelope toward Dad and opened it. Inside was a single sheet on top. My property ownership statement, the address highlighted, my name printed in boring, undeniable black ink. Under it were copies of the hardship variation request, the missed payment notices, and the signed lease extension they'd agreed to. Dad's eyes dropped to the address and narrowed. He frowned like he was trying to read through fog. "What's this?" he demanded. Mom leaned in, saw the address, and her face drained of color so fast it was like someone had turned a dimmer switch down. Her hand flew to her mouth. "No," she whispered, barely audible. Dean's grin faltered. "What is that?" he asked, sharp, now suspicious. I kept my voice even because I didn't trust it if I let it climb. "That's the house you live in," I said. "The one you keep calling our home." Dad's brow furrowed. "Yes," he snapped. "So what?" "So I own it," I said. The words didn't land immediately. It took a beat, like watching people process a car horn they weren't expecting. Dad blinked. Once. Twice. "No, you don't," he said. Automatic denial. The way people say no when they've already been hit. "Yes," I said, and pushed the paper closer. "Edo. I bought it 2 years ago. It's an investment property. I found out 6 months ago that you're my tenants." Mom made a small, broken sound. She looked like she might sit down on the ground. Dean's face shifted into a tight, furious smile. "Are you serious?" he said, voice rising. "You're our landlord?" "I'm the owner," I corrected. Dad's chair scraped as he stood up too fast. "That's a joke," he barked, but his eyes were scanning the page now, hungry for loopholes. "That's not possible." "It's possible," I said. "It's real, and it's why I'm not signing as guarantor for Dean." Mom's voice trembled. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Histoire de here." "Because you don't ask about my life unless you need something," I said, and it came out sharper than I meant. "And because I knew the second you found out, you try to take it." Dean snorted. "Take it? We're your family." Dad's voice turned dangerous. "So you've been sitting on this? Watching us struggle? Charging us rent?" He said rent like it was a personal betrayal. My hands shook under the table, so I clasped them together in my lap. "You sign a lease," I said, "with an agency. Like adults. You've had payment plans. You've missed payments. And I've been more patient than any landlord would be because I didn't want to blow up my own family." Dad pointed at the guarantor form like it proved something. "And you think this gives you the right to refuse helping your brother?" he demanded. "You're using this to punish us." "I'm using it to protect myself," I said, "because I know what you're doing." Dean stepped closer, eyes bright with anger. "You think you've got power now," he hissed. "You think you can hold the house over our heads." Mom grabbed his arm, whispering his name, but he shook her off like a dog flicking water. Dad leaned forward across the table, face inches from mine. I could smell beer on his breath. "We raised you," he said, voice low and shaking. "We fed you. We clothed you. And you're going to sit there and tell me you own our home?" I swallowed. My throat hurt. "You didn't help me build anything I have," I said quietly. "You told me I was selfish for saving money. You laughed when I talked about investing. You call my job office nonsense. You told me Dean was the one with potential. I built my wealth without your help. And now you're trying to use me like a bank." Mom started crying then, real crying, not the performative stuff. "We're scared," she whispered, voice cracking. "We're scared, and we didn't know what else to do." I looked at her, and my chest tightened because I do love my mom, even when she makes me feel like love is a transaction. "Being scared doesn't give you the right to trap me," I said, "and it doesn't give Dean the right to use my name." Dean scoffed. "You're acting like we're criminals." Dad snapped. "She's always been dramatic." And there was again, the family label slapped onto me to keep them comfortable. Dramatic. Difficult. Ungrateful. I took a slow breath and did the thing I'd practiced in my car on the way here, because I knew this conversation was coming the second Mom insisted I come early. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, voice steady. "You are not using me as guarantor. You're not taking out loans in my name. If you try, I will report it as fraud." And with the house. Mom flinched at the word house, like it burned. "I'm not evicting you. I'm not trying to ruin you. But the lease stays the lease. Payment plan stays the payment plan. And if you keep missing, the agency will do what agencies do." Dad's face went red. "You wouldn't," he spat. You wouldn't do that to us. I held his gaze. I wouldn't have done any of this to you, I said. But you've been trying to do it to me. Dean laughed, sharp and nasty. This is insane, he said. You're getting off on this. You want to be the boss. No, I said, my voice cracked just slightly. I want to stop being the safety net you cut holes in every time you fall. From inside, someone called my name in a cheerful voice, like nothing was wrong. My aunt probably. The normal world still trying to exist around this. Dad's eyes flicked toward the house, calculating. Don't you dare embarrass us, he hissed. I felt something in me harden. You embarrassed yourselves, I said. You chose to ambush me at a family event. You don't get to demand I keep it pretty. Mum wiped her face with the dish towel, mascara smudging slightly. Please, she whispered. Just help your brother. Then we'll sort the rest. Dee nodded fast. Yeah, you can afford it. The audacity of that sentence made my stomach twist. You can afford it. Like my sacrifices were a communal pool. I opened my mouth to respond, but Dad cut in, voice thick with rage. If you don't sign, he said, don't come back here. Don't expect family. Because family helps family. I stared at him. The fairy lights hummed softly above us. A moth circled them, attracted and doomed. Okay, I said quietly. Dad blinked, thrown. Okay, I repeated. If family only means I'm useful when you need money, then maybe I don't have the family you think I do. Mum made it sound like she'd been punched. Don't say that. Dean's face twisted. Wow, so you're cutting us off. I'm cutting off the manipulation, I said. There's a difference. I stood up. My knees felt wobbly, but I kept my shoulders straight. I gathered my envelope slowly because I didn't want them to see how fast my hands wanted to move. I didn't slam anything. I didn't yell. I just picked up my bag like a person leaving a room that no longer wanted her in it. Mum grabbed my wrist. Her fingers were cold. Please, she whispered, eyes wet, voice small. We need you. I looked at her hand on me and felt this wave of sadness so strong it almost knocked the anger loose. You don't need me, I said gently, and that gentleness nearly broke me. You need to stop leaning on me like I'm a crutch you're entitled to. Dad's voice cut in sharp. Let her go. He snapped at Mum, not because he wanted her to let go, but because he wanted control back. Mum's fingers loosened. I stepped away. I walked through the house, past relatives chatting in the kitchen, past plates of food no one would finish now, past my childhood photos on the hallway wall. My heart was pounding so loudly I felt like everyone could hear it. My aunt started to say, hey, you're leaving, and I smiled without meaning to, the kind of smile you do when you don't want to cry in front of witnesses. About an early start, I said, which was a lie and also the truth in a way. My life was starting, finally, properly. In my car, I sat with my hands on the steering wheel and let myself shake. Not pretty shaking. Full body shaking, like my nervous system was finally unclenching after years of bracing. My phone buzzed. A message from my property manager. Hi. Just confirming we sent the formal reminder today. Let me know if you'd like to proceed to breach notice if payment not received by Friday. I stared at the screen until my eyes blurred. Because this is the part people don't get when they hear power. They picture as smug. They picture me laughing while my family suffers. But power feels like responsibility. Power feels like making decisions while your heart is screaming. Power feels like knowing you could hurt someone and choosing, deliberately, not to, while also refusing to let them hurt you anymore. The fallout was immediate. Dad didn't speak to me for a week. Dean sent me paragraphs about how I'm on a power trip and money changed you. And you've always hated us. Mum sent voice notes that swung between apology and guilt, sometimes in the same breath. I'm sorry we pressured you, but you know your father is proud. Dean just needs a chance, we're family. Like she was shaking a jar of emotions and hoping something would settle into a shape that made me cave. I didn't reply to Dean at all. I muted him. I know that sounds cold, but if I didn't, I would have been pulled back into the tug of war where my mental health is the rope. I did reply to Mum eventually. One message. Simple. I love you. I'm not signing anything. The lease stays as is. Please stop asking. She didn't like it, but she couldn't argue with it without showing her hand. 2 Fridays later, The payment came through. Not the full amount, but enough to meet the plan. The agency emailed me, relief woven into their professionalism. I sat at my desk at work and stared at the confirmation, and I felt this strange mix of grief and vindication. They could pay. They just didn't want to, at least not until there were boundaries with teeth. A month after the barbecue, Mom asked to meet me for coffee. Just her. No Dean. No that. I agreed, because I'm not trying to scorch the earth. I'm trying to stop the fire from reaching me. She showed up looking tired, like her face had aged in the span of a few weeks. She kept stirring her coffee, even after the sugar was dissolved. Your dad feels humiliated, she said quietly, eyes on the table. I took a breath. Dad humiliated himself, I replied. Mom flinched. He thinks you did this on purpose, she whispered. Buying that house. Like you planned to control us. I almost laughed, but it came out as a tired exhale. Mom, I said, and my voice softened because she looked so small. I didn't even know it was you until the property manager called me. I didn't plan any of this, but I'm not going to pretend it's not real now. She nodded, eyes wet. We didn't know you had. Money, she admitted, and there was this weird embarrassment in the way she said it, like she'd always assumed I'd stay below them. Histoire de hair. You didn't know because you never asked, I said. You only saw me as the kid who would do what she was told. Mom swallowed hard. Your brother is angry, she said. I know, I said. He's angry because he can't use me. She looked up then, and for the first time in this whole mess, she looked at me like an adult. Not a daughter. Not a tool. An adult. Are you going to kick us out? She asked, voice trembling on the last 3 words. My chest tightened. No, I said immediately. I don't want you homeless. I'm not trying to punish you. Mom let out a shaky breath, tears spilling. Then why does it feel like you hate us? I stared at her hands, wrinkled, familiar, the hands that packed my lunchboxes and braided my hair when I was little. I don't hate you, I said, and my throat burned. I hate the way you treat me when money is involved. I hate that you tried to corner me. I hate that you raised Dean to believe he's entitled to my life. Mom covered her mouth. We didn't mean to. I know, I said quietly, but intention doesn't erase impact. She nodded again, crying silently now. I'm sorry, she whispered, and I believed her in that moment. Not because she understood everything, but because for once she wasn't asking for something at the same time. Things aren't perfect now. Dad and I talk, but it's careful like walking on glass. Dean still acts like I betrayed him. He's the kind of person who thinks consequences are cruelty. Mom tries, in her wobbly way, to stop using guilt as a language. Sometimes she slips. Sometimes she catches herself. And me? I'm different. Not because I'm rich, not because I own a house, not because I have power. I'm different because I finally stopped bargaining with my own boundaries. I stopped trying to earn love by being useful. I stopped letting family be a word that means you can take from me. If you told younger me that the day would come when my dad would try to shove paperwork at me, and I'd say no, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have pictured myself folding, signing, cleaning up the mess, then crying alone later like always. But something about building my life brick by brick taught me a lesson my family never wanted me to learn. Stability is not a group project. Respect is not a reward for obedience. And love that only shows up when you're convenient isn't love, it's access. So yes, I built my wealth without their help. I built it quietly, painfully, with 1,000 small choices they mocked until they realized those choices made me untouchable. And now I'm the one who holds all the power. Not because I want to control them, but because I finally have the ability to protect myself. The power isn't that I can evict them. The power is that I don't have to be scared of their anger anymore. The power is that no is a complete sentence, even when it makes the backyard go quiet. The power is that my life doesn't hinge on their approval. And the weirdest part, once they realized I couldn't be cornered, the shouting stopped. The guilt speeches got shorter. The demands became requests. The world didn't end. It just shifted. And for the first time, I'm not the one bending.